Welcome everyone to being at home with George during COVID. And as usual, I'm very excited about having this opportunity to chat with you and just really acknowledging right off the bat, why are we here? We're here because we talk about the possibility of embracing the hurt, the pain, and generating hope. And so when I think about this session today, there's no way I can start off without mentioning the fact that the president of the United States and the first lady have COVID. They've been diagnosed with having COVID, and so the first thing I want to do is send blessings and love and blessings to them. Hope for speedy recovery, and just to understand that there's been over 200,000 souls that we've lost, and another almost 7.5 million folks that have been infected with coronavirus. And so I want to start off with that realization, that reality, and also how to fit it into the frame. What's the lesson here? And I like to talk about embracing the hurt and the pain, which do by just acknowledging, yeah, this is happening. It's really not a good situation. It's a tragedy. It's sad. And at the same time, how do we generate hope? And one way to generate hope is to understand what's the lesson to be learned. What can we learn from this? And so for me, I kind of went back to my roots of Sunday school, and I was thinking about the quote from John 8:32, and it says from Jesus. It says, "Know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." And so for me, that is the thing. That's why I talk about hold the hurt and generate the hope. It's not denying, it's not repressing, it's not interpreting things as they are and making them into something else, because that's a fool's errand. Because if we don't know the truth, we won't be free. We'll be living in illusion. And I think this is what's happening, that this coronavirus is not a hoax. It's not a joke, and it's not something made up by anybody, and it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are, what age, what political persuasion, sexual orientation, any of that. It doesn't really matter what that is. It's an equal opportunity destroyer, I would say, or infector. And so the lesson here for me is that for each of us, we have to know ourselves and be for ourselves. And so that means that when something is offered to us about this is what is, it's a hoax or is it not a hoax, we have to do the investigation and explore and see for ourselves, is it true or is it not true? And so up to now, I feel like a lot of people, unless you've been um, affected by it, it may be a hoax or it may be nothing, not real. But now that we see that the president is infected and he's protected way better than all of us, then that's telling us something. And so, what is it? How can I know myself and be for myself? I have to understand how I need to get out of survival mode into growth mode, how I need to be open to the truth, no matter how painful it is. Once again, we go back to embracing the hurt, the pain, and whatever, but also generating hope. And generating the hope is, okay, yes, this is happening, and there's something I can do. There's some remedy, there's some compassionate action I can get involved in that will help me to to embrace what's happening and still generate, so that it becomes a stepping stone, not a roadblock, and it can help us to be more compassionate for ourselves. So I have to know myself and be for myself, which means I have to be selfish to be selfless. So that means I have to take care of myself. And so one way to take care of myself, it's interesting, is these three simple steps that we know that doesn't cost anything, or maybe cost of a mask, but wearing a mask, keeping social distance, and washing our hands or purifying the hands. And I see those as real things that we can do to impact everything. We don't have to wait for a medical treatment for it. I don't know when that's going to come, but right now, in this moment, we can do that and save thousands of lives, save a lot of suffering and pain. And so the metaphor for me is, so when I wear a mask, I'm being for myself, but it's interesting because by me wearing a mask, I'm really protecting those around me. And so it's this thing of I'm doing something that is really for the greater good, it's protecting all those around me. And if everybody else does that, then we protect each other by being for each other and by having compassion and kindness for each other. So I don't see wearing a mask as a punishment or something that someone's making me to do. I see wearing a mask metaphorically as me taking the steps to make sure I do no harm to others. And when I don't do harm to others, I'm not doing harm to myself. Because just from that little analogy, if I have it and I give it to somebody else, then it's going to ripple through. But if I have it and I have the mask on and I protect others, then it just stays with me and we can control it. So the wearing the mask is a metaphor for what am I willing to do for the greater good. So and even for doing it for the greater good, I'm also being for myself because I and the other are one. That helps us get beyond this illusion of separateness. Doesn't matter what my color or doesn't matter. I am a human being and I'm subject to that. And so by wearing a mask, I'm helping myself and helping everyone else. The social distancing is a compassionate act. It's like, okay, I can be socially distanced, so I would keep my distance so that once again, we're not transmitting or harming each other. And at the same time, it's an act of compassion because it is being generous. Wearing a mask is instead of saying sacrifice, it's a generous act. Having social distancing and understanding how can I relate to others without and keeping my distance, but still hold them in my heart and still be open to them as a human being. So that kindness and compassion and loving and wishing them well, whether I agree with what they say or not. And then the third thing, washing hands is like purifying our hands, making sure we don't get infected. But it's also a metaphor for what we can do about generating hope and compassionate action, which is how do I purify my mind and heart so that I'm not in survival mode, fight, flight, and freeze. I'm in growth mode, love mode, where I'm totally open to be, through kindness, compassion, seeing self and other as being the same, getting beyond the illusion of separateness and realizing that's the best way to do it is to be for others. And by being for others, I'm also being for myself. And so this idea of purifying the heart and the mind, and part of that process is to know the truth, and the truth shall set us free because we know this is how it is. And knowing what it is, how it is, we can respond to it in a way that comes out of compassion, love, understanding, and healing, well-being. An example of what I'm offering here is going back 36 years and some months ago when I had this, because of my chronic pain and other reasons, I was abusing substances. I was self-medicating. And unless I accepted the fact that I had a problem, that I had an addiction, and that my life had become unmanageable, unless I accepted that, to know the truth and the truth shall set you free, there was nothing I could do about it. But once I accepted it, then instead of being in defense mode, fight, flight, freeze, I was open. I was hearted. I had the how, the honesty, the open-mindedness, the willingness to say, okay, yes, it hurts, it's painful, and I can generate hope because there's a way out. There's a compassionate route out. And so this is where I had to go from believing what somebody was telling me, well, these are the steps, this is the way of life you need to get into. I could have a direct experience of it. I can investigate it and see if it was true. And it was indeed true because 36 years and some months later, I have more enthusiasm. I have more excitement about life than I ever had. And that substance abuse, and I also had chronic pain I had overcome and I'm dealing with even to this day. It became a stepping stone for me to rise up and to really get more clear to be for myself. And in that being for myself, I was able to forget about myself and find myself by going the route of service, going the route of how can I make those around me better? How can I make this world a better place than it was? And it all starts with me just, know the truth and the truth shall set you free. So it's knowing myself, being for myself. And at the same time, there's no separation between myself and others. And so if I relate to others as I relate to myself in a loving, compassionate, open way, seeing the masterpiece. I always like to talk about we start off with the masterpiece within, and how do we connect with that? And so these simple acts of kindness, like doing things to enliven or bring life in to things, not to be destructive, but to be creative, and to be about growth and development. So even in this process, how can we come back better? I work with athletes that get hurt, and I always encourage them to come back better than they were before they got injured. And so it's the same thing now. As a nation, we have to be able to know the truth and then do these little things to help us be able to do the big things. And we can't look at it like it occurs to us that it's inconvenience to wear a mask or to social distance or to wash our hands, when in actuality it could be perceived as an act of love and an act of generating more hope, more optimism, because we are moving into the future that we want to create, and being able to embrace this catastrophe, this present time issues that are here. How do we relate to those issues where we feel more empowered, more inspired, and that it takes us to another level of healing, of wellness, of togetherness? Because we definitely have to get out of this, get beyond the illusion of separateness and making other people wrong. And part of that is taking responsibility for myself and for others, but starting with myself, but not ending with myself.